Adam, how
You
are
you
you?
have as long as you want, Rachel.
Well, thank you. To start, I wanted to ask you, like, when you're directing something like Poker Face and it has a formula, you kind of know the pattern of the show and you know what's going to happen as an audience member. What for you is the biggest challenge of making that seem fresh and new when you dive into it, so then an audience isn't as kind of drawn, like they don't get to map out the pattern as they maybe would in other episodes.
Well, I think that's part of actually the fun of Poker Face is that the only thing that you know is that there's going to be a crime and a murder committed. But beyond that, I think part of the fun is seeing the crime itself before Charlie has entered into it, and then in revisiting it, understanding before you even get into the fun of her solving the mystery, understanding how it was that she was woven into the story before you saw her presence at the beginning of the show. And before I worked on Poker Face, I was a fan of the show as just an audience member, and that was one of the devices I always liked. It was seeing the new characters introduced in each episode, immersing myself in the new world that had to be created for each episode around the given storyline, and then getting a chance to revisit it and being made aware of how Charlie was actually present in the first place. So rather than feeling that that was an impediment to keeping an audience engaged, I always viewed that as one of the things that audiences embrace about the show and kind of have fun with. So I just tried to honor that and be true to the storytelling.
Yeah, and you get the two episodes that have already aired that you've directed are so different from one another, but also so much fun to watch for different reasons. Like I loved that child was just continually called a demon child, and like they were just like so mean to this girl in in Sloppy Joseph. But then I also
Yeah.
like the heart of One Last Job and
Yes.
the emotion that ended up behind those characters in that crime when you get to see the comparison and like you have a murder of a gerbil versus an accidental murder of a best friend. Do you view those murders with the same stakes as you would like would you view the gerbil in the same way you would the man in the second episode, only because like that is for all intents and purposes the murder of that episode?
Um, yeah, the short answer is yes. I mean, the I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about the juxtaposition between those two episodes when we were doing it,
Mhm.
um, partially because, in spite of the fact that they aired in sequence to one another, we did not shoot them that way. I shot Sloppy Joseph well in advance of the other episode. So there was a significant amount of time and a lot of production to immerse ourselves in between those two episodes. But the the stakes had to be high in both cases, and Charlie's investment in solving the mystery had to be high in both cases. So, in spite of the fact that in Sloppy Joseph, the murder victim itself is a gerbil, the victim that Charlie is advocating for and trying to protect is the boy. The role that Callum Vincent plays in the show, Elijah. It's so clear in her scenes with Dr. Ham, played by Margot Martindale, the brilliant Margot Martindale, that Charlie is passionately wanting to advocate and protect this child. So I think that's where the stakes became uh, clear and high enough that you could buy Charlie's investment, and hopefully um, that's reflected in the audience's investment in the story as well.
Yeah, it definitely was. I was as invested in a gerbil's death than I was any of these other cases. But I also, with One Last Job, you you had the freedom to play a little bit more with references and things because that is part of the episode itself. It's a man
Yes.
who, writes movies that reference heat and all of these things. Was there a specific reference that you were very excited to get to use with One Last Job that like you maybe in another episode of Poker Face wouldn't have been able to do?
I mean, you mentioned the film that for me was the most fun to reference because I've just been such a huge fan of it for years since it came out was Heat. It's a film I think that will be studied, for decades to come. Its execution of certain sequences are state of the art, and the performances are great in the film. So getting to kind of have an homage to that and a nod to it was a great privilege and a lot of fun. Um, and there were ways that references to Heat and the intercutting between Heat. We even added to that in the final cut of the show. There were revisiting the revisiting of sequences of Heat on those televisions in the final sequence was something that was discovered in the post production process of the show, and it worked really well juxtaposed against Sam Richardson's characters, unraveling there at the end.
And you mentioned Sam, but I love what I love about Burpees is you have these actors who are some of the best working in the business, and they get to come in and they do one episode, and we have to really love these characters and understand where they're coming from, or either hate them because of X, Y, and Z, whatever it may be. What for you is the biggest challenge as a director of like trying to make sure that those characters pops? I know a lot of that work is on an actor, but it is also part of the direction of an episode to make sure that we feel one way or another about these characters that we're interacting with for just the episode itself.
Yeah, I mean, one of the great joys of Poker Face is the quality of talent that's attracted to doing the show is very high, and you have a lot of people that wouldn't normally do a one-off guest star on a television show who are excited to work with Natasha, with Ryan Johnson, and there's quite a bit of time spent uh, finding actors that would be good for the role, but also that might relish the chance to play a character that's a little out of their wheelhouse, so that they get a chance to feel that they're stretching and trying something new. And again, with the caliber of performer, that the caliber of actor that we were hiring, um, they come in very aware of knowing that they have to carry a part of the show and are kind of pumped up at the idea of getting to do that. So oftentimes it really is just a matter of kind of creating a framework in which they feel comfortable and free to be as bold in those choices as they can be, encouraging them